If you noticed when you walked into the art room, the sign said boot camp. So that means everyone must do this boot camp because in order for you to use that station, you need to have practice using some of these techniques. So the first technique we're going to talk about is actually over here on our creative attachments poster. So if you look over here, today, you're going to get a piece of cardboard, flat piece of cardboard, and you're going to get a toilet paper tube, and you will notice you also have tape at your table. So that's how we're going to connect our pieces today. You could also use glue, but for time purposes, we're going to use tape today. Now, the first thing we're going to do is create our flange. We want to be able to stick our toilet paper tube onto our cardboard base. But to do that, we can't just do this. We could, but to make it stay better, to be a stronger connection, we're going to create what's called a flange. So at the bottom of my tube, I'm going to cut about 5 slits. 5 or 6. We don't want to go over 6. And I'm going to leave some space between them. And my slits are not very tall. They're about as tall as my thumb. That's my guide as I go around. So I'm using my thumb as a guide. All right, so now when I get those slits made, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend them then to make a tab. So when you look at it, it kind of looks like a flower with square petals. And I think I'm going to cut another slit here because this piece is not bending. So it's kind of a large piece. There we go. So now we have our flange. Now, when I connect it, these tabs are where I'm going to tape my flange. But before I tape, we're going to use this piece of cardboard and cut it in half so you have 2 pieces. This is the one we're going to do our slot on. This is the one we're going to tape our flange to. So now when we tape, we should know how to tear tape now that we're 2nd graders because we've been practicing since 1st grade, right? Yeah. Don't use your scissors because it makes your scissors gooey from the stickiness of the tape. So now, when I tape this on, I want my piece to cover the tab, but I also want it to touch the cardboard that I'm sticking it to. So does everybody see that right there? It's on the tab, but it's also on the cardboard, so it will stay. Now, right now, this is still pretty loose. So I'm also going to tape it on the opposite side, making sure it's on the tab, but also on the cardboard underneath. Now, if it's still kind of loose, you can tape a few more tabs. And when you're taping, but you have to make sure that it's also on the cardboard underneath. All right, so there's my flange. That's not going anywhere, that's staying. Now, the next one is to make a slot. Now, this one's kind of tricky. What I want to do is I want to measure where I want my slots to go. Do I want my slot to be on the side? Do I want it to be in the middle? Maybe I want to cut this into 2 pieces and I want to build it. So maybe I want to do a slot here, but then I want to build this on top and make it taller.
Are we making signs with it?
No, you don't have to make a sign. It could be a building. It could be a sculpture. It could be anything you want.
But you have to build it that way? Like
You have to practice a flange and you have to practice slots. If you have a question, I don't mind answering it, but do not interrupt me, and I want you to raise your hand and wait your turn. All right, so I'm going to add some lines here because I want my slot to be right here and right here where the edges of my tube are. I don't want to put it right in the middle because if I put it right in the middle, there's nothing for my cardboard to connect to. This is where my tube is. Now, when I make my slot, you could just cut a slit and stick it on. That might work if your cardboard is thin enough. But sometimes you have to cut right beside it again to make that slit a little bigger. Okay, so when I make it bigger, see that skinny piece of cardboard that I have there? That's to make my slot a little bigger. I'm going to cut that off. And then when I stick it on, I have a little bit more room. It fits better. All right, so I'm going to build on to this and add another piece. But because this cardboard is thicker, I need to cut my slot a little thicker. So I'm going to cut a line up, but not all the way up, just part of the way up. And then I'm going to cut another piece right beside it, another line right beside it. Skinny. We don't want it too thick, otherwise our hole will be too big. I'm going to cut off that tab, and then I can stick it on. Okay. So now, let's say I accidentally cut my tab too big. Not my tab, my slot. All right, so some in the last class, some students, they made their slot this thick. See that? Okay, if I try to fit it on, there is not enough there to hold it, and it's going to fall off. So because today is a boot camp, you do not get an extra piece of cardboard if that happens. Just practice again and cut another slot right beside it that's skinnier. Because this is just a practice day, remember? So if you make a mistake, that's okay. This is a learning experience. So there, see how it sticks on better now? Okay. Oh, it does look like a dinosaur, doesn't it? So I could draw on it, so maybe if I really wanted to turn it into a dinosaur. There's his nostril. Maybe it's a dinosaur with feathers. Okay, so you can draw on it when you're done. The scissors is a simple machine. Right here, everybody take a look at the TV. If you're having trouble cutting, it's probably because you're using the tip of your scissors. When you cut, you want to open your scissors all the way and slide the scissors in, and it works much better than trying to use the tip. This is where the fulcrum is. That's where we want to cut. So open your scissors all the way, slide the cardboard in as far as it will go, and then try to cut. Okay, that is the best place when you have something thick. That is the best place to cut, is on the inside part of the scissors. Notice there's some wavy lines here. Okay, that wavy line, Cooper, goes all the way through that cardboard. That channel, that hollow piece, runs all the way through to the other side. So if I flip it, there it is on the other side. Here, the channels run this way. In order to make the cutting easier, it is easier if you go with the channels, because you'll have open spaces. But if you cut this way, perpendicular to the channels or opposite of the channels, it will be a little trickier to cut. It's harder to cut. So that's just something to keep in mind.